ba 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 ba. Well, today is the last one of this quarter of ukulele fundamentals or foundations. And today we're going to be talking about pentatonic scales. We're going to be learning a little bit about some music theory and other things and how you can kind of use these scales all the way up and down the neck to create some more opportunities for soloing. Before we dive into that, though, I want to see if anybody had any questions from anything that's happened so far during this quarter, whether it's some of the maybe blues stuff that we worked on in our last session or any other questions in general. Any questions at all? Nope. All right, cool. We'll have some, a chance for questions at the end as well as we go through. But what we're going to start with here today is we're going to talk about pentatonic scales. Now, a scale is a collection of musical notes, right? A pentatonic scale is derived from pent, which is 5. It's a 5-note scale. And the reason why we use these to kind of teach scales for, beginning player is because it really allows you to get a good sound with minimal effort. A normal scale, major and minor scales, for instance, will have 7 notes to them. And the 5 notes that we're selecting to create the pentatonic scale are ones that don't really have any tension to them. All of the notes blend really well together, which makes them really approachable for getting nice sounds. In fact, one of the most common formats you'll see pentatonic scales in are wind chimes. Funny enough, if you imagine, wind chimes like outside banging into each other, making all that beautiful music. The reason why that works is because usually they're just notes of a pentatonic scale, and all the notes of the pentatonic scale kind of sound good together. So it doesn't matter what order the wind chime is striking their notes, it just sounds pretty good. We're looking at pentatonic scales as we're going through this. And what we're going to start with is our C major pentatonic. And to do this, I've got a tab that we're going to be working on, just like we did with our other stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and set up the screen share right here. There we go. Gonna zoom in a little bit. So can you guys all see this screen share that we have here? Yeah? Awesome. So the first thing that we're looking at is our C major pentatonic. Now, we're going to be only really playing in C major today. Well, it's not true. We're also going to be playing in A minor, but it's the same thing. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But with the C major pentatonic, what we're doing is we're starting on our open C string, and we've played around with stuff like this before. We're just going to play open on the C, just like that, using our melodic style picking with our thumb. Then we're going to take our middle finger, place it on the 2nd fret of the C string, play that. Then we're going to take the open E string, play that. Then 3 on the E, open on the A, and 3 on the A. Both of those with the ring finger with our fretting hand. And if we keep reading the tab, from here we just go down from it. So 3 on the A, and open on the A, 3 on the E, open on the E, 2 on the C with the middle finger, and open on the C. So with this, it's not a very difficult scale. If you've never played something like this, it can certainly be challenging. But it's a really nice, pleasant sound, right? Again, I mentioned the wind chimes earlier, and that's really what this is. It's a lot of notes that just sound good no matter what order. They just sound nice. This makes it really approachable for soloing because it doesn't really matter what note you play, it's just going to sound good. Now the problem with this is when we're learning scales on the ukulele, specifically with the ukulele, we really run into issues with range limitations because on the ukulele, we only have 4 strings. If you're playing a high G like I am, you really only have 2 octaves of range that you can really play within. 3 different C notes going with, of course, only the opportunity to play scales between those. So it means that we have to get really, flexible and modular with how we approach soloing and moving across the fretboard. So what we're going to look at now are these notes that were being played. We're playing a C note, a D note, an E note, a G note, an A note, back to the C. And if you look at the tab here where I've kind of highlighted it, it's these right here. C, D, E, G, A, and C. Pretty cool, right? Now, this is only from 0 to 3 on the ukulele. When you watch somebody solo, do they just do this? No, they usually are going up the fretboard as they do it. And to show this, we're actually going to skip all the way to the very end of this tab. We're going to look all the way down here at measure 9, and what you'll notice is it actually says A minor pentatonic. Now, it might seem like I'm jumping around, but I promise this will all make sense in a moment. Let's go ahead and try playing this. We're going to start on fret 9, so way up on the fretboard. Take your index finger, place it on the 9th fret of the C string. We're going to play that. Then we're going to play 12 on the C string with our pinky finger. So this is getting up there, right? This is quite a bit more difficult, but we've got our 9 and then our 12 here. And then we're going to play 10 on the E with the middle finger. We're going to play 12 on the E with the pinky. We're going to play 10 on the A with the middle finger. And then 12 on the A with the pinky. So you can see these two 10s and 12s are played with the middle and pinky. And then the 12 on the C and the 9 on the C. And when you listen to this, it sounds quite nice. It's like a minor vibe to what we were just playing before. Now you might be thinking, why are we looking at C major pentatonic followed by A minor pentatonic? It's a little bit random, isn't it, to go from one to the next? Well, the notes that are played here in these two different keys are actually exactly the same. It's just starting on a C and playing the notes C, D, E, G, A versus starting on the A and playing the notes A, C, D, E, G. It's exactly the same. So what creates the context is where you're kind of starting in this case. By starting on the C note, sounds very happy and kind of major, right? Sunny day. When we start and end on the A, it sounds more minor, doesn't it, right? But here's the thing. If the only difference between these two scales is starting and ending, then there's really no difference to them at all outside of the perspective that we're trying to build. And this is where this tab really shines and where, you know, it's really important to be able to get comfortable with all of the different pieces that are shown here. Because what I have is starting and ending on a C with this, the first thing that we learned. 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 3, right? This one right here. So what if I start and end on the next note that's shown? Well, the next note here is going to be D, right? So what if I start on D and go to D? Well, I'm going to move up my shape, essentially, and play the same collection of notes, just now starting and ending on D, creating an opportunity to play at a different point in the fretboard. And the one here that we can see, we start on 2, go and take your index finger, play that note there. Then we're going to play 4 with your ring finger, then 3 with your middle finger on the E, 5 on the E string with the pinky, 3 on the A string with the middle finger, 5 on the A string with the pinky. So we have 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, 5. Now the reason I'm using these sets of fingers here is because with this exercise, I'm trying to, the best I can, keep it one finger per fret. By starting with the index finger here on 2, you'll know where each finger should go after that. There are occasions where this rule can be broken, which we'll see in the next one, but for the most part, it's right here. Now, when we listen to this, does this sound more major or minor? Well, it sounds different than the other two, doesn't it, right? Technically, this is more of a minor sound, but it's kind of the wrong way of looking at it. What we want to just think is rather that C major and A minor pentatonic, those 5-note scales, are the same collection of 5 notes. The only thing that makes them different is the context, the perspective. So starting and ending on a C makes it sound like C major. Starting and ending on an A makes it sound like A minor. Starting and ending on a D makes it sound like something entirely different. But if I kind of end with maybe the C note, maybe I do something like this. All of a sudden it sounds more like that C major, doesn't it? And if I play around that C note, you hear how it sounds more C major? The reason is because I'm just creating that context of the C major being my sense of home, my place that I want to kind of hang out. So I'm playing the scale. If I focus on this C note, we're good to go. Now it sounds like C major. Now if I wanted to make it sound like A minor pentatonic, all I'd have to do is focus on the A note. Finding that A note in here is the trick, but then listen to this. Hear how now that sounds like A minor, right? It sounds kind of bluesy. Sounds very similar to what we were working on in our previous session. You'll notice it's actually building off that same little idea that we worked on in a lot of ways. And that's what's so cool about this, is when we're learning this scale, we're not just learning our C major pentatonic and then learning our A minor pentatonic, but rather we're learning what makes them C major and A minor pentatonic, those same collection of 5 notes, starting and ending, moving them all the way up and down the fretboard. Let's go ahead and look at the next one here, starting on an E note. So we're going to start with our 4th fret of the C string. Take your index finger, go ahead and place it there. Then we're going to play 7 on the C string with our pinky. Then we're going to play 5 on the E. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and there's 2 different ways you can play it. The way I oftentimes play it was I'll use my middle finger here on 5 of the E, pinky finger on 8 of the E. So that's a bit of a stretch, right? It's a 2 fret stretch where there's only 1 finger between. But that's one way of doing it. Then 5 on the A with the middle finger, 7 on the A with the pinky finger. So we have 4, 7, 5, 8, 5, 7. The other way you can play it, if you're wanting a little variation, is you play the 4 and the 7 the same way with the index and the pinky finger. But then you cross that index finger up to 5 on the E. And you play that there. And then the pinky can play 8 on the E string, index here on 5 of the A string, middle finger here on 7 of the A. And the nice thing about that is it feels a little bit more comfortable, but you have to cross into it, right? Where that index finger is going from the 4 to the 5. So there's a few different ways to do it, and at the end of the day, if you're doing this and you're feeling comfortable and you're able to get up some speed and it's working, then keep with it. Just try to be able to do as many different ways as you can, and that's the best way to have success with it. But that's starting and ending with an E note. So I can do the same thing. It's like, oh, I want to make it sound like C. Well, I focus on this C note, which is the 8 on the E string. If I focus on this, it's going to sound more like a major, right? See how that sounds nice, happy major, right? But if I focus more on this note, the A note, then I can make it sound more minor. You can hear now it sounds more like that minor. It's just the context. It just depends on where we're kind of starting and where we're ending, but also where we're focusing our efforts to create that different perspective. And this is cool because now we're going up the fretboard, right? Now we can solo here. We can also solo here. And now we have this new one here. And now this has given us another mode, another version of this. And we keep going because we've only done 3 so far. Well, kind of 4. We already did the A minor pentatonic. Let's go ahead to measure 7 here, and you can see on the tab, we're going to start on 7 of the C. Index finger here. And we're going to play 9 on the C with our ring, 8 on the E with our middle, 10 on the E with our pinky, 7 on the A with our index, 10 on the A with our pinky. And we can go back down. So we're at 10 on the A, we're at 7 on the A, 10 on the E, 8 on the E, 9 on the C, and 7 on the C. It's kind of neat because now we're in another position. We're in another place that we're playing this with, right? And I really like this one because if I'm playing in the key of C, for instance, I'm using this version of the scale, this version of the mode, my C note is right here, the 8 on the E. And what makes this so nice is I can go above or below this C relatively easily. If I'm here, I can come above, but I can also go below. And that, to me, is where the real magic with solos can come into play, is find that note that you're wanting to focus on, in this case, just a C, and be able to go above it or below it. And that's where it really sounds nice. Because if you think about this C scale that I was playing before, I could approach this C. I could come into it, right? And I could descend into this C. But I can't come in from below this C. And I can't go from above this C either, right? It just doesn't work without changing the modes. And that's why this mode is one of my favorites, is it just kind of centers that C in your feel. And it just, a lot of things kind of come very naturally from playing with that, right? Then the last mode here we already worked on, the A minor pentatonic, going all the way up to 9. And it's that same scale we worked on a moment ago, right? They're all the same scales. They're all just playing with C, D, E, G, A, back to C, or back to whatever note we started with, depending on where you play it. And so when we're working with this, and if you're seeing this, you can download a copy of this in the link if you're watching this as a recording. Otherwise, check the email with this recording to be able to download this tab. But what this allows us to do is really start to see how these scales can work up and down the neck on the ukulele. And this is how really good soloists get good, is they use these what we call pockets of these little spaces to find different sounds and textures. In fact, in our last session, when we talked about some blues riffs, remember we were playing in this zone? I love this one for A blues, which is playing an A minor pentatonic scale, which we just learned A minor pentatonics, the same as C major pentatonic. We'll talk more about some of the theory there in just a moment. But I love this one because my A note's here. I can go above it. I can go below it. That's what makes this such a cool little area to play with. I much prefer soloing here than I do up here. Just because this one provides a different element of flexibility. Now that preference doesn't mean I use it all the time, just like you might prefer having a cheeseburger one day, but then the next day you want a hot dog. You know, it's the same type of thing here. And that's what makes this so cool. It's the variety of being able to solo in different ways and find these different sounds as you're kind of going through. Now, you might be wondering, why does the pentatonic scale sound nice no matter what you do, right? It sounds fine. And I mentioned before that there's no tension in it. And not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but if I played a C major scale, that would sound like this. There are two notes that aren't played in a C pentatonic scale. And those two notes are an F and a B. The F is the 1 on the E, the B is the 2 on the A. If you just listen to those, you hear how they're kind of spicy, right? What do they hold? Well, they hold a lot of tension. The B really wants to go up to a C. And the F really wants to go down to an E. In fact, if you listen to just these two notes, and then this, you hear how that sounds kind of resolved? If you've played much ukulele, you might know G7 to C is one of the first sounds we really learn on this instrument for tension to resolution. Hear how tense that is? How resolved that is? Well, the notes that really make that chord tense are these two. And so we can hear that resolution kind of take place with the C chord. And that's why we cut the notes out of the pentatonic scale. Does that mean that we don't like these notes and we shouldn't use them? No, not at all. It just means when we're trying to create a very simple sound, a very kind of, neutral sound for our solo and trying to start getting comfortable with this, it can be helpful to take those notes away, just as we're learning and getting comfortable. And then as you get comfortable with this, we'll learn other things that we can do to reintroduce those notes and add other elements of color to our playing as well. But that's the pentatonic scale in a very simplified way, and being able to play this shape up and down the ukulele, starting at all the different notes, is a really beneficial skill to be able to create these really nice solos. And it's just kind of fun, right? So I'm going to open up to any questions you guys might have on pentatonic scales, major scales. I know we didn't go too much into the theory here. We've talked about some of the things in the past too. But the big thing to try and take away is getting comfortable with those modes, going up and down and practicing it. But are there any questions at all that you guys have? I'll make sure in the chat too. I usually miss that sometimes. No questions? No worries if not. Very cool. So just as a reminder, with this, the pentatonic scale, pentatonic is a 5-note scale. And if you want to do this to another key, all that you need to do is take whatever major key you might already know, and you take the first, then you take the second, the third, the fifth, and the sixth notes to create that pentatonic scale sound. So if you're in the key of G major, you could take G, A, B, D, and E and create the same type of feel. So whatever major scale you want to do it with, it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. On the flip side, if you want to do a minor scale for it, the minor ones are going to be 1, 3, 4, 5, 7. Helps if I say it right. And it's the same deal going through, and you can do that for any of these as you're going with it. Looks like we do have a question in chat. Let me go ahead and pull that open. On another topic, when do you know when you should change your strings? That's a fantastic question, and the answer is when you have to ask a question like that. No, just kidding. Changing your strings is definitely something people don't do enough. You want to think of strings on your ukulele like tires on your car. They're kind of meant to be worn and replaced, right? They are not a permanent fixture. And so with strings, there's a physical thing that you can do to tell when you need to change them. You can pick up your ukulele and you can take your finger and you can run it underneath your A string like this. And if you feel a bunch of little dots under there, that's the string being worn away by the frets. That's like the tread of your car tire going away, and it means you really should be changing the strings. If your string doesn't have that feel at all, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not time to be changed, though. Depending on the brand and type of string, you really should be changing them anywhere between every 3 months to 9 months, depending on the brand and everything else. 9 months is usually, for most string brands, kind of the max before you should try changing it. And then Jan says, where can we get a copy of the documentation? So it should be sent in an email with this recording so that you can see it there. We're also trying to set up like a Google Drive that has all the documentation from all of these quarter fundamentals, and then that way things will be updated as soon as they go live. Now this is actually the quarter final for this quarter of ukulele fundamentals, or foundations rather. We will be starting a new quarter in the fall. It will be on a different day. More information will be coming soon as we have it all sort of ironed out. My kid will be starting school. He's entering kindergarten, and so we'll be doing these when he's at school instead of Friday afternoons. But more information will be available shortly. But thank you guys so much for coming, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys next time in the next quarter here at the Ukulele Kids Academy. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
So let's sing a song and share a little hope today. la 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 la.